Hello everybody, in this unboxing I take a look at the Mercenary set for BattleTech. This is one that I personally bought from the Kickstarter, and we're going to check it out. We're going to see what the new mechs are in the box, see what the new vehicles, as well as there is a new campaign system, new rulebook, new primer, and it all adds on to a Game of Armored Combat box set as well. So if you have that, you have all the rules you need to expand it with the Mercenary set. Anyway, let's go and take a look at it. So here we have my box for the Mercenaries BattleTech set. This is the Kickstarter exclusive cover, so it's just the upper part of the box that is this nice pattern and color. Other than that, all the contents are exactly the same. So what we have here is the rulebook. We'll do that first. We'll just show a little bit of the rulebook first. This is an add-on to the book you would have gotten in the a Game of Armored Combat box, that original starter box. This adds to the rules that are in the rulebook for that. So they kind of act as supplements, talking about what's new in here. So we have ground vehicles, airstrikes, artillery, that sort of thing. How those rules apply, how these new cards work. So we have strike cards, which show different things. So strafing and long tom, for example. Then we have all of them laid out here in their damage types, how these work, and then we have a campaign, which is our mercenary campaign. So plenty of information in there, a little bit of backstory, how to sort it all out, how to make a contract, the contract steps table, plenty going on there. I'm trying not to go into too much depth on it, and you can see everything that is available in there. We also have at the back here these two sheets, which also come in the box. I will show those actually in a minute rather than just play with them there. And we get a nice little bit of painted miniatures on the back. So that's one thing. Next, our primer. Now I thought initially this was just going to be the primer for BattleTech. I thought this was just going to be the basic welcome to BattleTech kind of primer. But they've obviously tooled it towards the mercenary box in this case. So as before, in most of them, we get all this little bit of different eras, the Ill Clan era and stuff like that, a little bit of a timeline in there. We then have a new inner sphere map for 3058. This shows different hiring halls and stuff for the mercenary contractors. On the next page, same again, except it's 3151. So there's a lot more going on here with mercenaries. They become a larger part of the universe. Soldiers of Fortune, what are mercenaries? A little bit of a blurb on how they operate. And then we go into some of the notable key sort of mercenary factions. We have the Wolf's Dragoons, which are the clanner turncoats that decided, well, initially were scouting for pre-clan invasion to see what the Inner Sphere were doing. And then realizing, actually, when the clans invaded, we're not so keen on the clans anymore, and turned their guns on their former masters. Kellhounds, I haven't read too much in the Kellhounds, but they look cool because my boys are here, the Eridani Light Horse. These are my favorite faction and what I told my Mercenaries Kickstarter to have a lot of Eridani stuff in it. We have the Grey Death Legion, and then we have the Northwind Highlanders, and there's a little bit of a historical blurb on each of these. Northwind Highlanders, for example, are the oldest faction that can trace their history back to pre-space flight Terra, so they're an old group. Get a few more on the back there of different names. Moving on, we then have a little novella, No One Left Behind, and this is just a little bit of story for you to read, possibly while your opponent is taking their turn. If you're playing classic rules, you can sit and read this. In the main box, obviously we have our miniatures. We're going to get to the miniatures in a bit, but I want to go through the cards. So we have two decks of cards in here. First ones we have are notable pilots for each of the mechs that we get. So we have a few of those. Then we have our Alpha Strike cards, which are inclusive of the mechs and the ground vehicles in the set as well. So we have plenty of those. And then we have our strike cards, light airstrike, for example, light bombers, heavy bombing. We move on to ground stuff as well. So we have light air cover, plenty of air stuff in here. We have the thumper artillery, long tom artillery. Then we have minefields. So we have light density and heavy density. I think there's medium as well in there, maybe. Yep, medium density and heavy density minefields. Again, all explained in the rulebook. So move those, stick those back in there, move that to the side. We then have these asset cards, which are various emplacements, guns, and all that sort of stuff. We have infantry, we have armored infantry, including the clanner elementals. We have jump infantry, mechanized, motorized, on foot. Then we have vehicles like the Galleon, Pegasus, and turrets and MG teams and stuff like that. So once you've figured out your rules and your campaign systems and stuff like that, that's where these come into play. Again, we'll move the miniatures to the side. We get our standard 2d6 in the box. Onto our sheets for classic rules. So we have all the mechs that are involved in the box with everything needed for the classic rules have come together in this little sort of booklet. You can scan, print this off, and then laminate the printed pages or the copied pages. We also get 2 sheets of tokens for our infantry, elemental groups, smaller armored vehicles, and objective points and stuff like that. They also show their front facing with the red letters and the red arrows. After that, we are on to our strike board, which shows how all the strikes work. Basically a quick reference sheet for how those are done in game. And then we get our contracts. So we have our campaign flowchart, and we have our contract record sheet. So if you're playing your campaign, you can list everything down there. Last but not least, we have our map sheets. The map sheets for me are a particular nice part of these larger box sets that CGL do. Beautiful matte paper, lovely detail on the terrain, and we have all the hex grids numbered out there as well. So we have 2 of those. And then we have our typical big glossy poster of the inner sphere. This side is the inner sphere 3051, so shows how the great houses are laid out and some of the clans as well. And then this one is 3058, showing a lot more sort of clan activity up towards the periphery during the clan invasion, which is all this mess up here on the map. So what I'm going to do is get the camera in close. Let's look at some miniatures. So first up is our DVS2 Devastator. This is the biggest mech in the box. A very chunky, very broad design. Tons of stuff going on here. Let's see if we have some weapons here that we can talk about. Not really on the Alpha Strike card, but we have plenty of stats. Big guy, chunky, good detail, quite a heavy model as well. Little top heavy. He's not too bad. Looks good to me. We're not going to dwell on these too much, obviously. So let's look at our next one, which is going to be our Quick Draw. So Quick Draw is quite a old fan classic as well. Again, nicely done. Plenty of detail in there. Mold lines, they're obviously present. They are in a lot of the CGL plastics, but they aren't too bad. Quite a handsome looking mech, so move him away. Our next one is the Chameleon. Chameleon's quite a nice, sleek looking design. I quite like the look of that. Be interesting to paint, try and do something on those shoulders. Again, not a lot to say about them. Nice big jump jets there on the back. So just a little brief look at our Chameleon. Next, this is one I haven't seen in a long time. So this is the Firefly. Now, I haven't seen a Firefly rendered or in my hands, or even on a screen since MechWarrior 3,
where Fireflies were not only in the intro cinematic, but they were in the gameplay as well. And I've not seen Fireflies in a long, long time. So nice to see something that's a bit smaller and a bit faster. Not quite like the Locust, but definitely another cool little light mech for us. Our next one is the Locust's little brother, the Flea. And of course, very diminutive. 3 weapons on there, looks like 2 small lasers, possibly a machine gun in the chin as well. Another great classic small mech for us. Moving on, see if I can find something here. The Austral. I've never seen or heard of an Austral before, but this is apparently what they look like. And again, probably 2 medium or 2 large lasers in the chest with maybe 2 small lasers. Nothing apparent on the arms. Just looks like he doesn't mind getting in close and punching a few things. Again, quite a nice little figure. Moving on from that, we have the Caesar. Move that in there. Caesar, again, is another one of those older designs, very reminiscent of MechWarrior 4, if you're familiar with that. That sort of more rounded shoulders and stuff like that. And this cockpit that sort of comes right over the front face of the mech. Looks like we've got something like a PPC maybe on one arm, or a PPC in the chest, and maybe a small laser and a large laser there on the arms. Not sure, I haven't been looking at these sheets correctly, so we're just looking at the models. Don't worry, we're just appreciating the models. Our last mech in the box, the Star Slayer. Star Slayer is an interesting looking one. He's, he reminds me of something that I can't remember the name of, with that shoulder mounted gun and the more squared off cockpit. You guys can tell me in the comments. This looks like 2 PPCs, hard to tell, or 2 big autocannons, maybe a couple of LBXs or something, I don't know. Again, another good looking mech, nice little design. These feel a little cleaner than the Clan Invasion box models. There's not as much mold line wise on these. I'm not sure if that's because they've changed the design approach, or the molding process was just a little bit better for this box set, but these look nice. On to our tanks. We have 2 flavors of tanks in the box, and we get 2 each of them. So we get the Galleon, and we get the Maxim. So the Galleon is a light tank with just a cannon and maybe a couple of machine guns there on the hull. Nice, fits in the base very well. Looks good. The Maxim is one of our hover transport vehicles, and I think if you're a fan of Hired Steel, I believe one of the hover tanks they use in that is a Maxim alongside a couple, I think 1 or 2 Savannah Masters, perhaps. But this one definitely looked familiar to me when I opened the box and checked it out. So we get 2 of each of those, so we get 4 tanks in there along with all our mechs. Not a bad amount of stuff in the box. So let's pull back out and wrap up. So here we have everything laid out from our Mercenaries box. It looks to have quite a lot of stuff going on there. Pretty much on par with the previous ones like Clan Invasion and a Game of Armored Combat. A bit more of the paperwork heavy side in here. Obviously we have some of the extra stuff for the Mercenaries specifically, with the card tokens and a few extra sheets and bits and bobs. Largely on the same par even with model count. I think it's very similar to the Clan Invasion box. It might be a couple more over. I can't remember exactly how many are in Clan Invasion. But it seems that when this comes to retail, it's going to add something to the base game. I've not seen too much in here to do with Alpha Strike. I have a feeling Alpha Strike is really going to be just more played off the cards more than anything else. There's probably a mention of Alpha Strike in here in the rulebook, but I will need a bit more time with it to get that down. However, just a look at the box and what the contents are, I think we're pretty solid for how this is going to turn out. And gonna have to try and figure out a mercenary company to paint it as Eridani Lighthorse, because it's going to be Eridani. That's the scheme I've went with before. That's the scheme I might continue with. I might do them in a different camouflage, but they are going to be Eridani Lighthorse, more than likely. So yeah, I think as I move along, this is a nice little unboxing. I've got a load of force packs from the Kickstarter as well that I will look at and unbox as well if you're interested. And if there's anything you want to see done as a 3 colors up or a tutorial of some sort, do also throw that into the comments as well. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think down below. Was it worth the wait for you guys that backed it on Kickstarter? I think it was worth it for me personally. I knew what I was getting. I knew what I was aiming my Kickstarter for. So all in all, again, thank you for watching. Leave your comments down below and I will see you again very soon.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.